Coming to ecology now, Sadhguru, you again have a very deep bonding with the environment, with ecology. Your organization has done such wonderful work. Tell us more about this link.
You know, when these days when I go out somewhere in these conferences, I was in the economic forum and somebody came up and said, oh, you're the tree planter, aren't you? I said, no, I'm not a tree planter. Then he asked, no, you planted millions of trees. Yes, we did, but I'm not a tree planter. Then he asked, what do you do? I said, my work is to make human beings blossom. Planting trees is just a small part of the work, but that's taken… more notice have been taken of that than this, because somewhere in our perception, people don't think human beings blossoming is so important. Planting trees, feeding them, giving them medicine is all considered important, but helping a human being to naturally live healthfully, joyfully within himself, that is not considered important, which is a serious mistake we have done. The very significance of this nation is that this was always known as the spiritual capital of the world. Right from the ancient times, thousands of years ago, people traveled to this country seeking spiritual guidance. You must see the glorious terms in which Apollonius in 1st century describes India for its spiritual glory. He spent a certain time with a certain acharya in India, and he went back and the Empress of Rome had his biography written. And you should see the way he speaks. He went to Egypt and people asked, with this kind of authority, where do you get from? He said, anybody who has visited India, he will have this authority to speak.
And that was so long ago.
So long ago. And more recently, one person who was given the best compliment for India, unfortunately, our tourism department should use this. Mark Twain, when he came to India, he had heard so much about Indian mysticism. He came, he had a good guide. He went around for about 3.5 months in India. When he was leaving, he said, anything that can ever be done, either by man or God, has been done in this land. So,
wow.
That is the kind of depth and profoundness that we have for the inner dimension of this human being in this country. No culture has looked at the inner mechanism of the human being as we have looked at it here. But that is becoming diluted and dissipated. So one of the main goals of Isha Foundation has been to bring it back to the right pedestal, offer it as a science, not as a faith, not as a belief, not as a philosophy, but as a scientific process for inner development. As there is a science and technology for external well-being, there is a whole science and technology for inner well-being. If you do not tend to the inner ecology, you will be naturally callous to the outside ecology. When you do not care about your own well-being, will you care about anybody's well-being?
No.
It will never happen.
True.
So the spiritual process is extremely important, and that's been the ethos of this nation. If you look at ourselves as a country, say we all speak different languages, we eat different kind of food, we dress differently, we look different, everything is different about us. But there has been a spiritual thread which makes us Indian, which is non-religious. You can see in the same house, you can worship 5 different kinds of gods and still be together. So there is no one religious belief as such in India. Everybody can do what he wants. If you don't like any of the existing gods, you can create your own.
True.
This freedom has been given to us, because with this kind of freedom, with this kind of absolute freedom to pursue whatever you feel like, this is the only nation where there is no word to describe a heretic, because there's never been a heretic in India.
Right,
you know?
Right.
It's all been 100% been an absolutely free culture, and that ethos is going away. People are getting all wired up in different ways. So it's very important that we present Indian spiritual process as a scientific process, which has been the essence of our work. And if you do not tend to the inner ecology, the outside ecology will naturally dwindle. So I don't see any difference. Once a human being turns inward, he naturally includes everything as a part of himself, because inclusiveness, an all-inclusive experience, is the basis of any spiritual process.